Okay, that was weird. Game really didn't, or Twitch really didn't want me to do that. Am I back? Are people able to see me in the chat and stuff? Successfully? Working? Okay. So, I had just swapped to, So I had just swapped to possibly my new favorite character as of Samurai Warriors 4, even though he was introduced in 3. I'm not sure if I want him above Masamune or below. Maybe above. This is Hanbei Takenaka. Hanbei he starts off the game as Kanbei Kuroda's basically student. But despite being a student and like a kid, he is the one actual kid on the battlefield. He is Zhuge Liang. Literally, they reference that he is Japan's Zhuge Liang. He is this brilliant tactician who also, most of the time, wants to do nothing more than go take a nap instead. Which, honestly, fucking mood. He is probably the first person to recognize that, like, he ends up working under Oda alongside Kanbei, but he's never happy about it. And he's the first one who starts talking about, like, Oda's not going to bring peace. But Oda is the stepping stone, and once Oda's gone, there will be peace. This is the most Garlal-coded character in the franchise. Fuck you, also you're right. This is the prodigal youngster. A really fun weapon, which is a fucking yo-yo shield that's also a compass. Also, the part that's really painful is about the fact that he is always looking towards the future and, like, putting up with everything for a good future, and also knows he's sick and is not going to live long enough to see it. I believe he dies even before Nobunaga Oda does. So he doesn't even get to see Hideyoshi's, or at least he maybe barely sees the start of Hideyoshi's world. Which is why he's depicted as a kid, is specifically because he dies too young. And it's definitely some of the harder hitting scenes. They never specify exactly what. I think historically it was believed to be tuberculosis, yeah. But, yeah. Beloved boy, fucking mood, incredibly tragic, just like absolutely my archetype, just check them all off. Favorite character. I think he's also consistently one of the top 10 most beloved characters in the franchise. I know that much. Because they do run popularity polls every so often, and, like, it's not just me, everybody loves this boy. Okay. One of his rivals in the early story, repping Western Japan, is Motonari Mori. The older dude in this picture, not his child. We'll see his child soon. Motonari is also a tactician, and is also very much like... He would rather spend his time being a historian and an author than having to fight. And is basically doing his best to bring up the Mori in peace despite the chaos. They don't necessarily do anything to make him stand out as a character in terms of super memorable drama or anything, but he's just a really respectable dad. He's also really fun to play as because he has crossbows on his arms, which is, like, he's literally dual-wielding crossbows. It's a cool setup, but that's beside the point. I don't know. I really like Motonari. He's not amazing in any way that makes him stand out, but he's good. Lady Aya. Aya is Kenshin's wife. She leans even harder on the our family principle is to go help the weak. But she has a little bit more of a personality, and that she's also this kind of like sometimes really aloof and confusing like she has like, I don't know how to put it, she's got this divine like mystique about her that isn't necessarily unfriendly, but you're not 100% sure you can trust her, even though she actually does generally have good intentions. She's probably up here along with KG. I like her more than her husband, but I think she can just sit right next to him. She can feel distant in her interactions. That can also be a good way to put it. She has a fairly different feel from a lot of the rest of the women cast. Okay. Masanori Fukushima. Because they decided to just put a fucking delinquent in Hideyoshi's squad. This is one of Nene's sons, and part of, like, the trio along with Kiyomasa down here. I feel like you can look at this dude's portrait and understand everything he is about. This Cromarty-looking motherfucker. Yeah. This dude is exactly who he looks like in personality. Except a little bit less of an actual jerk and more of just a genuinely good dude. And so he probably goes, like, up here. He is very much his archetype. They don't really do much special with him. But, like, that's fine, I think. I think here, actually. It's fine. He can stand next to Mitsunori. They're pals. Is this Wooden Sword Ryu from Shaman King? No, but also not no, because it is that archetype. Takatora Todo. What the hell is his deal again? No, really, what the hell was his... Right, he starts off the story as one of Nagamasa's retainers. Alongside another guy that we're going to get into. We're getting into the characters I have no memory of. Yeah, I think he wasn't introduced... He wasn't in Samurai Warriors 3. He debuted in the Chronicles games, I think. So Samurai Warriors 4 was his first mainline appearance. The basic idea is that there's him and there's another dude we'll get into in a bit, Yoshitsugu, who is down here. They're kind of always playing off against each other, where initially they're working together with Azai. Takatora is the more practical one, where Yoshitsugu's kind of the more idealistic. And it ends up constantly having them separate out and end up on different sides. One side loses, they're together again, and then they split back apart. And that's kind of the dynamic that's going on for both of them. But, like, beyond that dynamic, I can't actually tell you much of anything about Takatora. He features semi-regularly within the story. They are trying to tell a story with him. But it ends up only really working on Yoshitsugu's side, I think. It's a storyline they don't successfully pull off in this. Now Tora. Now we're getting into the characters who I believe actually did debut. No, wait, she was in Chronicles as well. We're a couple characters before we hit the 4 exclusives. So this is now Tora E. Didn't realize she just got that ass hanging out. They really gave her a super skimpy outfit. I'd like to say I know anything about her, but I actually really don't. And what I experience of her, I actually really don't like. So the thing is apparently she is supposed to be the leader of a major family. Like, her historical claim to fame is that she is the only female leader of a clan back in this time. Japan was extremely patriarchal, and that's reflected in the cast. That said, she doesn't do a damn thing in the story. She just keeps showing up, and on occasions where she does show up, she's very much super moe-coded. You know, the super clumsy girl who is just really kind of weird. I don't know, I want to kind of put her down with Kanetsugu, but no, I don't think she's that bad. No, you know what? We're gonna call this tier defeat. Because just they were not cooking with this character. Or at the very least, the archetype she's supposed to represent is an archetype I have no care for at all. It was Kanetsugu's tier, because Kanetsugu was the only one down here, but now that I'm thinking about Naotora, I'm like, no. No. Finally, Munenori Yagyu. He gets to hang out with Musashi and Kojiro in being a character that I know absolutely nothing about, other than the fact he was apparently a famous swordsman. And is with them because, of course, there's a bunch of famous swordsmen. Cecil said, what a kick in the pants to make the only historical female leader a moe blob. That too, like, it kind of actively disappoints me. Anyway, Munenori keeps showing up in battles. Unlike these two, I should technically put him above because he keeps showing up in battles, but I'm putting him below because I don't know a damn thing about him. I know less about him than the characters who didn't actually show up in the story. They do nothing with this dude. He just keeps being there. Okay. Now we're hitting the characters who were actually introduced in Samurai Warriors 4. This is Nobuyuki Sanada. For the fact that Yukimura has been the poster boy of the story, it is genuinely a surprise that it took until Samurai Warriors 4 for them to give him any family as an actual unique character. And I like him a lot better than his brother. They start off on very, very similar paths and as very similar archetypes. But I think the big thing that makes Nobuyuki work, where Yukimura doesn't, is Yukimura is fighting for pride and, like, the spirit of a warrior, and because that's what he does. And they never go anywhere beyond that. Nobuyuki actually realizes he is fighting for his family and even for his brother, and develops an actual motivation that causes him to take a different path and decide it's not worth fighting for the sake of fighting, we have peace. And ends up actually fighting against Yukimura in the end. And technically, like, the ending of the game, the very final scene, at the end of the final battle of the storyline, the ending cinematic is Nobuyuki and Yukimura duking it out. Nobuyuki wins, but can't actually strike his brother down, and he lets Yukimura, which gives Yukimura the opportunity. He realizes, like, okay, I'm going to lose this fight, so Yukimura grabs his lance and charges at Ieyasu Tokugawa in the final charge that historically leads to his death. while Nobuyuki just kind of watches on and realizes he's failed to stop it from happening. Which gives Nobuyuki a lot more actual emotional weight, and is why I like him. Like, they actually do something with the warrior archetype in him, as opposed to warrior for the sake of war. If that makes any sense. He succeeds where I think Yukimura's biggest weakness is. By the way, there is actually a Samurai Warriors like 4.5, which is called Spirit of Sonata, which is specifically focused in on the Sonata family, and has a whole lot more of them as actual characters. Which apparently is pretty decent. Because I'm not a fan of Yukimura himself, I don't know if I'll actually touch that one, but I've heard good things. It's also the only Samurai Warriors game, I believe, that has character designs that actually age over the course of the game. So that's neat, too. Okay. Yoshitsugu Otani. This is the dude... When I was talking about Takatora, about how Takatora had a specific dude that, like, was his friend, but they kept, like, bouncing and reuniting and going different paths and stuff. Yoshitsugu is the other one. And he's, like, at least more interestingly written. He's got this kind of mystical and curious air about him that is a little bit sort of mysterious and reserved for the sake of it, but also isn't unfriendly. Like, he feels like a character with a bit more depth, and a little bit more that pushes him out of the archetype that the rest of the, like, warriors for the sake of warriors and warrior drama goes in. I still don't think he necessarily, like, takes off in any major way. No. He's significantly better than Takatora is, but I still don't think really achieves anything that's serious. I wish I liked him more. They really tried to. There's a lot with him in Takatora, which is why it bothers me that they just couldn't quite succeed on it. Okay. We're down to some of the last entries, by the way, so we're nearing the end of this. Hisahide Masunaga. God, this dude's so much fun. I'm putting him up at the bottom of S tier. So this dude looks like a goddamn villain. And that's because he is, and he kind of owns it. His whole deal is that he sees himself as, like, the enemy of a lot of Japan, and he's one of the first people to fall to Nobunaga. But then Nobunaga's like, hey, you're gonna work for me now. And it creates this whole tension where Nobunaga's trying to constantly, like, or is basically just constantly assuming and knowing Hisahide's going to backstab him, and even actively creating opportunities, but enjoying watching Hisahide fail every single time he tries. But Hisahide, like, lives up the villain thing. And he actively talks. Like, part of what ends up pushing Mitsuhide in the story to rebel is also Hisahide talking about how he's, you know, he's the villain of his story, so he's going to take his life back. He wants to be in control of his own destiny. And, like, that... The end of Hisahide's story is, after one of his failed betrayals, Nobunaga goes to him and is like, I don't want you to die, I don't want your life gone, but I will take that tea set you're using as recompense. And so Hisahide rips the top off of the teapot, and it's full of dynamite. And he's just like, screw you, Nobunaga. And of course Nobunaga survives the assassination attempt. But it's one of the most wild scenes in the game. And, like, this dude has serious Majima energy in a lot of ways. And it's just great. He has a lot of fun as a villainous character who is just unashamedly villainous in this game that is trying to avoid painting any single individual strictly as a villain. And I think that's a lot of fun. There can only be one magnificent bastard Nobunaga. Exactly. Character number 50. Kojuro Katakura. So I mentioned that in Samurai Warriors 4, you're always playing as two characters. So when they went to do Masamune's story, they realized Masamune's story, specifically up to this point in history, been Masamune's story. So they updated one of his retainers to become a unique character. And so we have Kojuro Katakura, the loyal question mark assistant who, if Masamune is very much like brash and aggravated and stuff, Kojuro's like the nanny trying to always keep him under control, but also sort of encouraging him, while also trying to kind of weave him into making friends with Hideyoshi and not ending up in a war against the entire rest of the country. And succeeding, by the way. They also just have some fun with him. He's not taken serious all the time either. They do a lot of good, fun stuff with him as a new entry to the cast, and I actually ended up liking him quite a bit. And it's not just because, like, he is attached to Masamune, but, like, that whole dynamic that gets introduced is just a lot of fun and entertaining. So I think... yeah, that feels about right. This is, by the way, this is totally the kind of dude who would just, like, adjust his glasses. You know, anime style. Okay. 51. Just copped this game today, excited to play through the stories. Cool. It was a lot of fun, honestly. Kakekatsu. Okay. Okay, now we finally get to talk about Uesugi's kids. I mentioned that part of the reason that I came to like Kenshin and Aya in this game was that they actually go into more about their family by introducing the kids that succeeded them. Kakekatsu is Kenshin's actual biological son. And this dude, who I will show you... oh. I just realized that was showing the wrong image. So that's Kakekatsu. This dude is Kagetora. This is actually Hojo's son. This is the son of this dude, who, in an early war between the Uesugi and the Hojo, the way they make peace is basically the Hojo give their son over to the Uesugi. And Kagetora is absolutely torn up about being abandoned by his family, goes to commit seppuku, like actual seppuku, and gets hard stopped by his new adopted parents who are like, well, if they don't want you anymore, you're our son now. And they give him a new name and everything. And, like, that's in keeping with their whole, like, we're there for the people who need us. This kid who basically just got sold off as a peace offering to them, they're there for him. And Kakekatsu then kind of has to deal with the consequences of that. Which is, at first it seems like it's going to be jealousy, but Kakekatsu is actually like a very silent type character who doesn't talk a whole lot. And in the end, he's able to kind of get over any frustration he might be feeling when Aya's like, this is somebody who needs us. You know that our family is about helping those who are in need. And so Kakekatsu does come to accept Kagetora as a brother. Up until Kenshin Uesugi suddenly dies, and having not named an heir, the two of them end up fighting. And the end of the story is that Aya specifically goes to Kagetora, this one, and shows up to help him fight, and he kind of realizes, oh, she shows up where people need help. I'm going to lose this battle. And he does. Now, I've been talking about them while flipping between the two of them, Because you might notice Kagetora only has concept art and Kagekatsu actually has, like, a full portrait. And that's because for some reason Kagekatsu is fully playable, but Kagetora is not. He is technically obtainable in Chronicle mode, but so is every other generic officer in the game. He just is a unique model. But he fights using one of the generic movesets. It feels really weird that he was never his own fully fleshed out character to play as, for how much he features in the story. He is like the only non-playable character who ever appears in cutscenes. And I wanted to rant about that a bit. As for Kagekatsu, he is fine. I think I like him about as much as his family. Like, he feels completely at home just sitting in the middle of, like, being part of that drama. Maybe a little bit under Kenshin, because the thing is he is one of those characters who is so strong and silent that, like, he straight up doesn't talk in a lot of the scenes where he's around. But it also makes the few times where he does talk fairly impactful, so... Yeah, Kagekatsu's, like, fine. 52. Takekage. Again, I mentioned that some of these characters came around because characters that they wanted to tell stories with only had themselves. So, if I scroll back a little bit here through some of these images, you might remember... God, he really is a bit back. That is this kid here. Takekage is this young lad. Let's get back to it. And that's because he is indeed Mori Motonori's son. And it would have been fairly easy for them to not do much with him, I think, in the face of that, because they're not particularly, like, major players on the stage of history. But Takekage's deal is, like, on top of just sort of carrying on his father's dream in many ways, initially, him and his dad are rivals to Kanbei and Hanbei. But Takekage's, like, trying to see towards a better future and a brighter one. And there's this whole thing that the game brings up about how he sort of... There's going to be somebody out there who is a tactical match for him. Which ends up being Hanbei and then later Kanbei. And they're enemies initially. And then Takekage does not end up on the same side as Kanbei does until after Hanbei's death, unfortunately. So they're never quite... Like, the story very much plays with the fact that they would have been friends. To the point where, in the battle before Hanbei dies, Takekage actually realizes he's sick. He's like one of the only people who is actually able to see through Hanbei's acting, and it's like, oh no. They still don't quite land him as much as Hanbei and Kanbei, because they don't do too much with him later beyond that parallel, in that, like, the tragedy of two people who dream the same, who end up on opposite sides, unfortunately. But I still enjoyed him a lot. He can go... I think he can sit at the bottom of A tier. Like, he's just up there as, like, a chill, nice dude that they do interesting thematic stuff with. Even if they don't quite land it. Also, the fact he's kind of pretty does stand him up there. Like, there's a lot of pretty characters that I have kept low down because I didn't like what they were doing with them. I like what they were doing with Takekage. And he is an interesting part of the drama around the tacticians that I just really liked. Okay. We have 3 characters left. Who's next? Oh my god, it's her. It's Koshosho. I finally get to talk about Koshosho. So first off, yes, her design compared to the rest of the cast is absolutely freaking wild. Second off, you see that fancy pink sash that she's got going on over, like, extended behind her and over her shoulders? That's her weapon. Third off, she is fantastically fun as a character. The first... Where is it here? God, what's his name? Mr. Rockstar, Motochika's storyline. Where did I even put him? There he is. Motochika's storyline is initially dealing with other lords on his island who are getting bewitched by Koshosho. Because basically the deal is like everyone else in this story is very much... Even Lady No, who is doing, like, dangerously sexy, is, like, everybody is generally doing very loyal to a specific person. Like, very, very demure and ladylike. Koshosho is actively using her femininity to charm her way across the battlefield and get her way. And that's sort of her thing throughout the whole thing. Up until, like, she kind of ends up siding with Motochika and sort of inheriting his rebellious spirit to the point where she even shows up in the final battle alongside Yukimura just for the sake of it, because fighting against the tides of history is sort of what she has inherited doing. And she's just so much fun in the process that, like, I think she's actually one of my faves. This woman feels almost kind of out of place, but also she is so much fun, and she is having the time of her life in this storyline. And, like, if we're gonna do a setting where it is expected that all the women are just absolutely about dudes, I love the subversion of having the woman who's the most about dudes, because they are easy to fuck with. Steps into the Sengoku era saying, fuck it, we ball. Okay. Next up, Toyohisa Shimazu. Again, I mentioned there are characters who just did not have anybody on their side who got extra characters. Toyohisa is Yoshihiro Shimazu's nephew. And he is the young upstart who is ready to absolutely throw away his life in the name of his family, and his uncle has to constantly be like, you get one life to throw away, you dumbass. Stop, like, literally throwing yourself into life or death situations. And, like, for the most part, that would be a fine enough dynamic. But it also kind of hits home in that the final scene between the semi-final stage for Yoshihiro's story, involves him actually only escaping with his life because Toyohisa sacrifices himself to give him time to get away. And it's in that one moment that Yoshihiro actually accepts that Toyohisa is the one who puts it ahead of, like, I'll do this for you. But you're the family leader, you need to be the one who survives this. And, like, it is actually a pretty decent scene that puts him... Actually, I think because they landed something specific, I do want to put him up in A. I'm going to move Nobuyuki up into A, too, in the case of, like... These are characters where I think they actually really landed something special. Or, like, successfully landed the story they were trying to tell all the way. So Toyohisa, like, it's fitting. He's one of the new characters. They do want to show him off. And make him land. So, like, yeah, that makes sense that it fits. Unfortunately, I don't have as good of things, as I've said about the last couple characters, to say about the very last character we have, Lady Hayakawa. I don't know why it is that we have, like, Oichi, and Aya, and No, and Kai, And then we have Lady Hayakawa. Specifically, her title is in her name, and I don't know why she is the specific character who gets that treatment. She is Ujiyasu's daughter, and is part of, like I said, he's really humanized by the fact that he has a loving and caring family. The biggest problem with Lady Hayakawa is she is exactly the character she looks like. Like, she is just a demure sweetheart who has a Triforce on her... Oh, right, the Triforce is somehow also the Hojo family crest. I guess that's just a historical coincidence. Got momentarily blindsided by noticing that. But she is exactly the very demure, very mindful, very sweet, and that's about where her character development ends. There is an attempt at tragedy in that the way that the story ends after the Hojo are defeated is Kai stays behind and ends up joining the very final rebellious battle, while as Lady Hayakawa goes over to the Tokugawa, and like becomes part of that family, and in theory they're fighting in the final battle, but like nothing really comes of that. She suffers from the fact that Kai is underutilized, and they really do not land the story with her, so she is just left with her archetype. And it's really unfortunate that that's the note we have to end on, because that is the all of them. Again, these remaining characters, this first dude I know is actually now Tora's son, and is the star of one of the storylines in 4-2, and is like the only new character that was in 4-2. And apparently he's like a beloved character, but I didn't play 4-2. This was specifically 4. And then the rest of these are like ascended minor generals and empires, so yeah, there we go. I can't see it all. I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit, which might... I hope that's still all showing up on the stream. Yeah. No, it's not. There we go. Now it's all on stream at once. Let me delete out this row, and there we go. So there we go. There's my ranking of the Samurai Warriors cast that I just randomly felt like doing after playing this game for 30 goddamn hours to get through all the stories. I know it's a bunch of characters that people didn't actually know, but I hope you had some fun listening to me discuss all these people. I mean, it's been pretty decent that there's a bunch of characters who, like, have been like, hey, I don't really feel like these characters did anything in the story, but at least there's only 2 characters that I can actively say I disliked. I gained a new appreciation for some of them. That is the advantage of having all the different Warriors games, is like the way that their stories are approached in different stories gives different ones different chances to shine. And like I said, 4-2 specifically is like 13 character-specific stories. For some characters who were underdeveloped in this one. So. But yeah, with that, I should probably wrap this up, because I need to go get a drink again, because I have been talking for... Well, actually, I don't know exactly how long, because I had to restart the stream partway through. God damn it. That's going to make that awkward to upload to YouTube if I choose to, but yeah, thank you all for coming by and hanging out, and I will catch y'all later.